Hi, my friend, how are you? If you are watching today's video, the chances are you're someone who create a lot and also someone who think a lot and might feel a lot. I always think the ability of thinking and feeling so intensively is a blessing of mine. It allows me to absorb and form a perspective about the world and help me become a better storyteller. By living in such a productive and goal-driven world, our intensive feelings sometimes can become a burden if we don't know how to manage it, if we don't have awareness of it. It is up to us to be able to protect our mind and our feeling in order to protect our creativity. And if you are going through a period of time moving forward day after day, and then there are things after things required your attention, and you find yourself unable to create, this video is for you. And if you're new here, welcome. My name is Nani. I'm a writer-director based in Los Angeles, and you can check out more information about me and my film in the description down below. And today's video is going to be a coffee chat. I got myself matcha instead because I already had coffee today. And that means I'm not going to put any insert in today's video. Feel free to put me in the background while you're doing chores. I feel in that way it more feels like a friend's chat with friends over a phone call while you're doing chores. Anyway, through my last video, you might already know I've gone through a period of a creative slump. Two reasons. One is I stopped creating for the entire month, went on a trip, so I kind of lost my momentum from there. The second reason I think is because of how overwhelmed my day job is that I wasn't able to create an emotion boundary between me and my full-time day job. In fact, I find myself involved with it even more. So during that period of time, I was not able to write anything, and my writing plan are all behind. And I was also not inspired to make YouTube video. Even the act of opening my computer feels dreadful, and I was not really reading. I find myself spend a lot of time scrolling on my phone, and it's almost one of the distraction that can give me the comfort from the exhaustion that I have from my full-time job. So when I'm going through this kind of struggle, there are also mental negative words that I said to myself, and I'm sure they are not helpful either, that they kind of create even more stress, and I was not able to step back to find a solution for that entire month, and that led me to feeling very depressed. Until about a month and a half in that very dreadful feeling, I suddenly start experiencing this kind of fear, the fear of losing myself. I always really purposefully engaging with my thinking and my feelings because I just love them so much. But during that period of creative slump, I find myself not even able to have any emotion attachment to my memories. For example, when I'm scrolling on social media, maybe some video remind me something about my childhood. Almost all the memories that I can think of my childhood feels unreal. They are lack of details, and they are such blurry that I don't feel I have any emotion attached to it. You almost feel like I'm looking at someone else's memory, or even it's just a memory, I made it up. Honestly, at that time, I was start getting worried that whether or not I was going crazy. After one of the very stressful day after my full-time job, I had a completely meltdown. I cried real bad, and I see that as a good thing. Because before that, all I felt each day is that I'm walking around sort of like a zombie. It's almost like what people described that sleepwalking through life. That's how I felt. So when I get able to feel sad and when I was able to cry, I see that as a good thing. After that day, I made my mind that this has to be stopped no matter what it takes. But luckily, this is not the first time I'm going through creative slump, and I'm sure it's not the last time. Throughout years of being a writer-director, I went through this a lot, and it's always come as waves. There are periods of times I'm more creative and productive, and then there are periods of time I tend to feel overwhelmed and dreadful. Because of the experience, I knew what to focus on. I knew where to start in order to get my mind back. And this is what I want to share with you, and hopefully here and there some of the idea can help you as well. Before I start sharing all the things I've done in order to get my creativity back, I want to do some myth busting first. And I think this is a very important concept to grasp on, and we often forget when we're in a state of overwhelmed. I'm going to use writing as an example. Oftentimes when people talking about being a writer outside of a full-time job or being a writer outside the school, people are often talking about time management. How can we carve out the time? How can we dedicate time each day outside of our full-time job or school in order to get our project done? This concept is started on the wrong foot. Is that how you see it? Start on the wrong foot? Anyway, I think you know what I mean. Being creative is not about time management. It's about energy management. When I say energy management, it's basically mean this is a game that we're going to play with a clear mind. We need to optimize our mind in a way that be able to serve our creativity. It's never about time. Even if we have all the time in the world, and if we constantly stress out and then constantly occupied and distracted by other things, we are not able to create. Every time when I start going to this kind of creative slump, I tend to forget about this. I tend to think about how can I find the time to create? How can I maybe go to my day job less in order to have more time to create? But when I even can get 1 or 2 days off from my full-time job, I was still not be able to create because my mind was not in the best place for my writing. A few weeks back, I had a Zoom chat with a friend whom also a writer that I met through this channel, and he reminded me, as the nature of a human being, we'll only be able to create when we feel safe, when our mind think we are safe and not in danger. You might think what kind of danger I'm possibly in. To give you an example, things like my social anxiety, things like the stress coming from work. My full-time job is very mental demanding, and I constantly thinking about a lot of things simultaneously, plus managing people and then taking on everybody's emotion, and then be able to keep my own composure. All of those are creating a very high level of stress. I'm always joking with my therapist that I'm very high on stress hormone, because every day when I go to work at my full-time job 8 hours straight, I'm constantly producing more stress hormone for my mind. And how am I be able to create in that kind of condition? My mind does not know when it's safe, when it's not. Once it detects the stress hormone, it just think I'm not in safe situation, and it's not going to be able to have any creativity out of that high level of distress. So that's just one of the simple example. So outside of my full-time job, I also have stress of meeting my self-imposed writing deadline, meeting my self-imposed YouTube video deadline, and I want to read how many books each month, and I want to study language, things like that. All of those things just constantly adding on more stress and also make me feel more not good enough, because I'll never be able to complete them in the way that I wanted, even though I do have the time to do so. So maybe use this as an example. You can think about, is there anything or things in your life that giving you this high level of stress? that make you feel you're constantly demanded and you're constantly giving a lot of attention to different things. Now, once you identify those things, we can start going through the process of getting your creativity back. So the very first thing I did is exactly what I told you. I assessed everything that I have been doing and to see what are the things that can be eliminated temporarily so I can carve out the mental space for me to recover. In that case, I have to eliminate all the social media related stuff because it does take a toll on me. So I also deleted YouTube and decided to not making more YouTube video for a while and see how I feel. I also decide not giving myself pressure on catching up on my writing schedule, even though that's probably one of the most important thing to me. But I have to learn to be kind to myself, and to add in those pressure, it doesn't help, but only sabotaging my mind and sabotaging my creativity. So I decided to let it go for a while. I also decided to let it go of posing myself deadline of finishing reading books. And I also let go the stress of how many movies I have to watch each week. Things like that. Basically, just not only take away some activities, but also take away some mental thinking thoughts that created a lot of unnecessary stress, and give myself a little bit more compassion. In the end, I eliminated everything except my full-time job. That's just something I want to see if I can keep for financial reasons. So after the elimination, all the time you have on your hand will be protected time for your mind. And it's very important that dedicate those time to taking care of your mind. The first step is to be mindful about your stress management. Really recall what happened each day. For example, is there any event happen during your full-time job that might be able to give you some adrenaline that kind of cause you feel a little bit stressed? If so, be compassionate towards yourself that day. And when you come home, do something nice for yourself, taking care of yourself. And then don't talk to yourself negatively if you don't feel like to read, you don't feel like to do anything. Because it's natural, your brain needs time to reset and rest after a stressful day. Just let it be. To me, stress management can also be taking a bath, going on a dinner date, or go to somewhere, a bookstore, whatever things I love to do, or even just spend that money to buy a book. I don't allow myself to buy a lot of books anymore, so sometimes buying a book to me is a kind of emotional reward. I'm really addicted to it. Stress management also can be going to a park, doing absolutely nothing. Be spontaneous. I remember one of the days that I felt so dreadful, so stressful, and I just drive to a park, put a dirty blanket that's already in my car, and then sitting on the grass for a half hour. And then those little things are very peaceful. Don't look down to them. They can do a lot for your mind. Don't rush it either. It all depends on how much stress that you've experienced that day, or past several months, or the last several years. It really takes a lot of time to be able to get your mind back. So be patient with it. After you building the awareness of your stress and then start managing them, the next thing to do is to make yourself bored on purpose. When I'm saying make yourself bored on purpose, is that you stop doing things that you usually do in order to distract your mind, distract your stress, distract whatever burden that you have emotionally. So what you want to do is, first of all, stop watching those short videos for a while. I do realize it sounds a little bit controversial that I'm making YouTube video and telling you not to watch a video, but it's good to stop watching for extensive period of time to kind of eliminate those things for a while. The only thing you can do is maybe read a book. Don't watch TV show either. They are also really good distraction. What I've done is to just sit there, do nothing. or with my journal open, or I've started reading a lot. And I pick books that usually it's a little bit intimidate me, that I feel I have to read really slow. I might need to check dictionary a lot, and I just decide to really take my time to check every single word, to read sentence by sentence, and then start reading those books. Those activities were really a struggle because your brain has been filled with fast-paced informations. The attention span was so short, and then those short attention span content has been a good numb drug for you, for your mind, to distract you from all the feelings that you have. At least that's for me, and I really think that's how I started losing touch with all my memory and feelings, because I wasn't able to think anymore. And then that's what caused me feel I'm almost not able to think critically and think creatively anymore, because my mind used to consuming quickly and getting distracted. In the very beginning, those boredom are very uncomfortable, not like what I used to really enjoy. Gradually, actually not taking that long, I start feeling, and then each day looking forward to those times that I'm able to really sit there, take my time to be with my thoughts, to be with those sentences on the book that I can read slowly, to slowly take my time, process without judging myself, without blaming. Why are you reading so slow? Why can't you understand this sentence? Why do you have to check this word, what it means? Why can't you memorize more words so you expand your vocabulary so you can read faster? Those thoughts weren't there anymore. It was just me with a book or a notebook doing the thing that human does. Take time to think, to journal, to read. And a lot of time, the fast-paced world made us forget about that. Forget about that's the main difference between human and other animals. And we forgot how powerful this mind is, and we use the mind to dwelling on things that's never important, that comes and goes. Maybe that's why when people grow older, they start feeling time pass faster, because everything that's gone by start become more meaningless, because we're constantly pursuing, constantly chasing after things, instead of really stop, slow down, and take our time to think and feel and then create. So after I start feeling enjoy my boredom, I start adding more things in. I start reading a little bit more each day, and I also start watching movies. In the very beginning, I went through some mental crisis. I thought it was quite ironic. I spent entire of my day off decide to read. I read about 10 hours that day, and I spent another 2 hours watched a really good old movie. And for some reason, towards the end of the day, I felt guilty. All I felt is I spent the entire day to just consuming those things. I could have spent some time to write. I could have made some YouTube video. I could have do something productive. That's exactly the thought that I had in my mind, as if reading or watching a very good movie is not something productive. The thought really shocked me. The feeling of guilt really amazed me. It says a lot about how crazy this society we are living in, about productivity. How come taking my time to read a book is not being productive? How come watching a very good movie is not productive, but I have to produce something? I have to put more content online. At least in my mind, as if productivity has to be something tangible, something that I constantly produced, and that's productivity. And I thought that was crazy. I think it's just we used to the pace of the world. Like for example, watching a TV show, in that entire hour, every single scene have some sort of a plot twist. There will be endless information keep coming at you. As of if you spend an hour to read a book, there might not that many things happened during this hour of your reading. You might get into the character a little bit deeper. You might have a little bit depth understanding of something, but superficial information wise, you're not getting as much as watching a TV show. Spend 10 hours to read a book versus spend 10 hours to binge a show, you really don't feel you've done a lot in that day. That sense of felt I didn't do anything that day, that caused me felt the guilt. I really thought that was pure madness in my mind. And then that made me even more determined that I have to change that. I need to slow down even more, and I need to read even more each day. So I end up spending a lot of time reading for the last month. Whenever if you see me outside of my day job, I probably taking my time reading a book. I've even started tackling this bad boy that's 700 something books that I would never picked up in the past. But just for some reason, the slow reading make it less intimidating, and it really add up quite fast. And soon I find myself finish reading book after book and felt much more contentment within myself. I didn't plan how long I'm going to only read and do absolutely nothing outside of my day job. I got a feeling I just need to keep doing this, and then gradually my mind will start recover, and then I'll start getting inspired bit by bit. And that's really what happened. I spent so many time, I could have called it wasted time, but now I think they are the most productive time, because those time are dedicated for my mind to think, to absorb things slowly. When I'm reading book, I really think and write down notes to engage with the story, the theme, the characters. And then when I watch movie, I purposefully choosing to watch really good but very slow-paced movies. And then those things are all very helpful. For some reason, here and there, I'm start feeling things again. When I see certain things on the street, I find myself much more empathetic towards them. When I read a certain plot in the book, I start recall some memory, and then I find myself have some emotion attached to it. Just those little hint of feeling reassured me that I know I just need to keep practice this, and then when my mind feel nourished and rest enough, it will start create on its own. And here I am, I'm back, not because I forced myself to make a video to meet a deadline, but because I feel like to do it. It's such a kind of foreign feeling for me for a long time that I didn't even remember what it felt like that I'm feeling like creating something. Another thing I start doing is to keep journal. I write down thoughts, write down things I see. Not because I write because I want a documenting resource for my writing, but write only because that's the thoughts that appears in my mind. And also I took a lot of notes. Everything I read, I write my thoughts down. Even there are a couple of classes that I took, I take my time to really enjoying the process of writing notes. And then those little process also create much more patience for me, and also create a lot of more depth in my thinking. And I think that plays a very important part for my mind and creativity recovery. I think in general, the most important thing is to make yourself start thinking, to make yourself really taking things in, and start thinking with some depth, instead of just constantly on the surface understand information that you see. And the journal also really helpful for stress management, especially people like me. After a day of very stressful full-time job, after interact with difficult situation and people, it's very helpful to come home, process them as a form of a journal, to write it down, and somehow you relieve a lot of stress, especially when you write them down with some hot beverage and then listening to some music. It really felt like a treat. It's something I'm really looking forward to each day. Another thing you can do, and I start doing a little bit more and more recently, is to start going on date with myself. I start taking myself to place I want to go, to things I want to see, or go to bookshop like what I've told you before, and bring a book, buy a coffee, even just spend a little bit of time with your book in a cafe can really help me change the scenery a little bit and help me calm down my mind a little bit. Those activities really remind my mind that I don't have to keep go and then keep being productive and keep work and keep doing task after task by my desk. I can actually go out, live my life, to enjoy my life, really living as a human being. I think that's really something I've missing and something I was really distracted from. If we don't know how to live a life, how can we know how to create for people to relate to? So going out, live a life, even going to the grocery store and cooking a little bit can really help you slow down, take your time, be as what you're supposed to be. Not a productive machine, not a machine that constantly produces things, but a mind, a soul that can think, can feel, and then create. Think about how depressed I was a couple months ago. I really treasure what I'm having and feeling right now. This level of sensitivity and the ability to think deeply and slowly, as well as the ability to wonder. Only when your mind has space to wonder can lead you to have creativity. And only when your mind feels rested enough, comfortable enough, it will start wonder. And I hope that this video is a sign for you, as well as a permission for you to slow down, to take your time, to stop beating yourself up over not being productive. Stop blaming yourself not be able to create, but really start think, observe, and feel deeply. And then when you do that, the creativity will come on its own. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you find the video is helpful, remember to subscribe, leave a comment, or leave a thumbs up so that you can help me build and expand this community. And if you like this kind of coffee chat, I built an entire playlist right here for you. You can click it right here to watch them. And thank you so much for watching. Be patient, be present, stay creative. I'll see you next week.